The Dragon Emperor Valthor stood tall in his throne room. His giant body made dark shadows on the shiny black floor beneath him. 7 of his daughters stood in a straight line before him. Each one showed the true power and beauty that dragons were known for across the galaxy. A glowing hologram floated in the middle of the room. It showed a message from a human mining colony far away in space. The first 6 princesses were absolutely stunning. Their scales caught the light from distant stars and threw it back in every color you could imagine. Their wings were so huge they could cover entire spaceships from view. When they spoke, their voices were so powerful they could crack asteroids in half. These dragons stood with their heads high and their chests out. Each one believed she would be chosen for this special marriage arrangement between their empire and the humans. But then there was Reyna. She stood at the very end of the line. She tried her best to look smaller than she already was. At 15 meters from nose to tail, she was the smallest grown dragon in the entire royal family. Everyone noticed this about her. Her scales were a dull bronze color. They did not shine and shimmer like her sister's scales did. Her left wing had a permanent bend in it. She had broken it when she was young. The accident happened when she flew too close to a comet because she wanted to study it. While her sisters spent their days learning how to fight in battles and navigate through the stars, Reyna did something completely different. She spent her time in the old, dusty machine rooms deep in the palace. Places that everyone else had forgotten about. There, she would take apart ancient technology piece by piece. Then she would put it all back together in ways that made it work even better than before. Emperor Valthor looked through the files of different humans on his screen. His face showed clear disgust. These simple creatures actually wanted an alliance with his mighty empire? They wanted to join their people with dragons through marriage? The nerve of these humans was almost funny to him. It was like a small insect asking to marry into a family of lions. Then his eyes stopped on one particular file. The name read Tyler Reed, chief mechanic of the New Horizon mining colony. Just a regular worker. A man who spent his days covered in oil and dirt, fixing broken machines with his bare hands. This was absolutely perfect for what the Emperor had in mind. A mean smile slowly spread across Valthor's face. Yes, he would give these humans their alliance. He would give them exactly what they asked for. But he would also send them a clear message about what he truly thought of them and their request. He would send them his biggest disappointment. His most embarrassing daughter. The one who cared more about machines than about the proud traditions of dragon warriors. The one who made him look bad in front of other dragon families. The Emperor's voice rang out like thunder across the enormous throne room. Every dragon in the chamber could hear him clearly. Reyna, he called out. Step forward now. Reyna did as she was told. She walked forward toward her father's throne. Her movements looked clumsy and unsure. She could feel her sisters watching her. Their eyes were full of pity. Some of them even looked away because they felt sorry for her. The nobles and courtiers in the room whispered to each other. Reyna knew exactly what was about to happen. Deep down in her heart, she had always known this day would come. She was the spare daughter. The one who would be used when it was convenient. The one who would be thrown away when the family needed to get rid of someone. Emperor Valthor looked down at his smallest daughter. His voice was loud enough for everyone in the court to hear every single word. You will travel to the human colony called New Horizon. You will fulfill this marriage contract that has been arranged. Perhaps when you are living among the humans, your strange obsession with machines will be less of an embarrassment to our family. At least there, no one important will have to see it. Laughter filled the throne room. Courtiers chuckled behind their claws. Even some of Reyna's own sisters turned their faces away, unable to watch her humiliation. But Reyna did not cry. She did not show any emotion at all on her face. She simply bowed her head and nodded once. She had learned something important many years ago. When you show people that they have hurt you, they only hurt you more. It was better to keep everything locked inside where no one could see it. The Emperor dismissed her with a wave of his massive claw. Reyna turned and walked out of the throne room. Her bent wing dragged slightly as she moved. The sound of mocking laughter followed her all the way down the long hallway. But something changed when Reyna finally reached her private chambers. She closed and locked the heavy door behind her. Then she went straight to her computer terminal. Her claws moved quickly across the controls as she pulled up every piece of information she could find about this human named Tyler Reed. She read through his entire work history. She studied every modification he had ever made to mining equipment. She found technical papers he had written about making fusion reactors work better and more efficiently. Her 2 hearts started beating faster and faster in her chest as she read more. This human understood things. Real things. Important things. He thought about energy flow and mechanical systems the same way she did. He saw problems in machines and figured out creative solutions. He had published ideas about quantum resonance that were actually brilliant. Ideas that she herself had thought about but never had the chance to test. For the very first time in her entire life, Raina let herself feel something she had never felt before. Hope. Real genuine hope. Maybe being sent away from the Dragon Empire was not actually a punishment at all. Maybe this was her chance to escape. To finally get away from a place where she would never be good enough. To go somewhere far away where maybe, just maybe, someone might actually appreciate what she could do. Raina stood up and looked around her chambers. She started pulling out her tools from their hiding places. Diagnostic scanners. Precision welding equipment. Calculation devices. Design tablets. All the things she had collected over the years. All the things she had kept secret because her family thought they were worthless. She began packing everything carefully into transport containers. Each tool was precious to her. Each one represented hours of secret work and hidden dreams. As she packed, Raina kept reading more about Tyler Reed. The more she learned, the more excited she became. This human had rebuilt an entire power grid using mathematics that most dragons could not even understand. He had taken a failing reactor and turned it into something that produced twice as much energy. He thought like she thought. He built like she built. Maybe, just maybe, this marriage would not be the disaster everyone expected. Maybe her father had accidentally done something good for her, even though he meant it as an insult. Maybe she was finally going to a place where being different was not the same as being wrong. Raina allowed herself the smallest smile as she sealed the last container of her tools. Tomorrow she would leave the Dragon Empire forever. And she could not wait. Tyler Reed stood in the big landing bay of New Horizon Colony. He was wiping thick hydraulic fluid off his hands with an old dirty rag. The cloth had more grease stains than clean spots at this point. Next to him, Director Patricia Helms kept adjusting her formal uniform for the 100th time. She checked her data pad every few seconds like it might suddenly tell her something different. "This is such an incredible honor, Mr. Reed," Director Helms said again. Tyler had lost count of how many times she had repeated the same thing. "A real dragon princess coming here. Do you understand what this means for our colony? The prestige alone is worth millions. And the trade agreements we can negotiate with the Dragon Empire after this? This changes everything for New Horizon." Tyler watched the diplomatic shuttle slowly descending through the shimmering atmospheric shield above them. "Yeah, I heard you say that already. Multiple times actually," he said, not taking his eyes off the incoming ship. "I still think this whole thing is a terrible idea. I fix machines for a living. I'm not some smooth-talking diplomat. I barely know how to talk to regular people, let alone alien royalty." Director Helms turned to glare at him. "Well, you need to figure it out fast. The Dragon Empire is not known for their patience or forgiveness. If you insult their princess or refuse this arrangement, they could cut off all our supply lines. They could blockade our entire system. Do you understand how serious this is?" Before Tyler could respond, the shuttle doors opened with a hiss of pressurized air. The dragon that walked out was nothing like what anyone in the crowd expected to see. She was small. Well, small for a dragon anyway. She was barely bigger than one of the cargo hauler vehicles parked at the edge of the landing bay. Her scales were bronze-colored, but they looked dull and lifeless under the bright white lights of the bay. She did not shine or sparkle like the dragons everyone had seen in videos from the Empire. She moved forward slowly, carefully, like she was afraid of taking up too much space. One of her wings was held at a weird angle, not quite folded properly against her body. Her head was lowered, almost touching the ground. Everything about her body language screamed that she expected people to reject her. Tyler heard the whispers start immediately. People in the welcoming crowd began muttering to each other. Their voices were full of disappointment and confusion. He glanced at Director Helms and watched her face change in real time. First she looked excited, then confused. Then her expression twisted into something that looked a lot like disgust. She was trying to hide it but not doing a very good job. The dragon, whose name was Raina according to the files Tyler had been given, slowly approached the official welcoming committee. A small device attached to her throat glowed as it translated her words into English. Her voice came out soft and uncertain, like she was apologizing for existing. "I am Raina, 20th daughter of Emperor Valthor," she said quietly. "I have been sent here to fulfill the marriage contract between our peoples. I hope that I can serve." Director Helms cut her off mid-sentence. Her voice had gone ice cold. "Yes, we have reviewed all the documentation. Mr. Reed will escort you to your assigned quarters. I need to contact Earth Command immediately about some urgent matters." The way she said it made it clear she was about to file a complaint about getting sent the wrong dragon. Tyler saw Raina physically flinch when the director spoke to her like that. Something about it made him angry. He stepped forward, completely ignoring all the protocol and ceremony that was supposed to happen. "Hey, you need help carrying your stuff?" he asked Raina directly. Raina's head lifted up slightly. Her golden eyes went wide with surprise. It seemed like she had not expected anyone to speak to her like a normal person. Yes, thank you," she said, and Tyler could hear the shock in her voice. "I brought several cargo containers with me. They have my equipment in them." Equipment? That got Tyler's attention immediately. He walked past the director and the other officials toward the cargo ramp where workers were unloading large metal containers from the shuttle. His natural curiosity pushed aside any awkwardness he felt about this whole marriage situation. As he got closer, he recognized some of the equipment visible through the transparent sections of the containers. Those were precision fabrication tools. High-end diagnostic scanners. And unless he was seeing things wrong, those looked like experimental power regulation devices. Expensive, specialized equipment. "Wait, are you into engineering?" he asked, turning back to look at Raina. The change in the dragon was instant and dramatic. Her posture straightened up. Her eyes suddenly looked brighter and more alert. There was energy in her voice that had not been there a moment ago. "Yes. Quantum mechanics is my primary focus. Specifically energy distribution patterns through crystalline matrix structures. I have been developing some theoretical applications for—" She stopped talking suddenly. Her bronze scales seemed to darken, like she was blushing. "I apologize. I am sure you are not interested in hearing about my boring research." Tyler pulled out his data pad quickly. His fingers flew across the screen as he searched for something. "Wait, hold on a second. Are you K. Draconis? Did you write that paper called Fractal Energy Distribution in Nonlinear Systems?" Raina's jaw literally dropped open. She stared at Tyler like he had just spoken some ancient magical language. You have actually read my work?" she asked in complete disbelief. "Read it? I have been using your equations for the past 6 months." Tyler said, getting more excited now. He was talking faster, the way he always did when he got into technical subjects. "Your work literally saved our secondary reactor from a catastrophic feedback loop that would have destroyed half the colony. Your third theorem about harmonic balancing? Absolute genius." Tyler grabbed one of her equipment cases without asking and started walking toward the workshop section of the colony. He was already talking rapidly about technical problems. "Forget whatever formal ceremony the director had planned. You need to see my workshop right now. I modified your third theorem so it would work with our older model fusion cores. But I have been completely stuck on the harmonic resonance problem for weeks. The phase shifts keep creating these tiny fluctuations that throw everything off. If you are actually here in person, we could work on it together and maybe—" "You modified my theorem?" Raina's voice was completely different now. Stronger. More confident. Genuinely excited. "Did you account for the phase variance in the crystalline structure when you—" "That is exactly where I got stuck." Tyler interrupted, just as excited as she was. "The phase shifts are creating microfluctuations in the energy field that I cannot stabilize. I have tried 17 different approaches and nothing works." They were already halfway across the landing bay, heading toward the workshop area. They were both talking rapidly about mathematics and energy systems and quantum mechanics. Behind them, Director Helms and the entire ceremonial welcoming committee just stood there in confused silence. All the formal speeches and official procedures they had planned were completely forgotten. Director Helms called out something about proper procedures and formal introductions that needed to happen. Something about protocol and diplomatic requirements. Neither Tyler nor Raina looked back. They did not even slow down. They were too busy discussing energy harmonics and quantum field theory. For the first time since Raina had learned about this arranged marriage, she felt something strange and unfamiliar in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize what it was. Happiness. Real, genuine happiness. Someone had actually read her work. Someone understood what she was trying to do. Someone wanted to talk to her about the things she cared about most. And Tyler, who had been absolutely dreading this entire arranged marriage situation for weeks, suddenly found himself genuinely excited. For the first time in months, he had someone to talk to who actually understood advanced engineering. Someone who could help him solve problems that had been driving him crazy. Sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes what looked like a disaster at first turned out to be exactly what you needed all along. 6 weeks went by in what felt like no time at all. The workshop became their entire world, and neither of them wanted to be anywhere else. Tyler's workspace had always been his favorite place in the entire colony. It was his sanctuary, his escape from the rest of the world. Tools hung on every wall in a system that looked messy to outsiders but made perfect sense to him. Half-finished projects covered every available surface. It was organized chaos, and Tyler loved it that way. It was a place where he could focus completely on problems that had clear, logical solutions. But now something had changed. The workshop had transformed into something bigger and better. It was no longer just his space. It had become a collaboration zone where two completely different minds worked together in perfect harmony. All the things that made Reyna defective in the Dragon Empire turned out to be exactly what made her perfect for this work. Her small size, which her father and sisters had mocked her entire life, proved to be incredibly valuable. She could squeeze into tight engine compartments and reactor spaces that would take hours to disassemble if a larger dragon tried to access them. Her flame breath was considered weak and pathetic by dragon standards, but it could perform precision welding at exact temperatures that human tools could never achieve. The heat was perfectly controlled, never too hot or too cold. Even her bent wing, the injury that had marked her as damaged goods, found a purpose. When they needed to test aerodynamic modifications in their improvised wind tunnel, her wing created unique airflow patterns that gave them data they could never have gotten otherwise. "Hand me the plasma coupler." Tyler's voice echoed from deep inside the power core of a huge mining mech. He was somewhere in the middle of the massive machine, surrounded by cables and conduits. The tool he needed suddenly floated through the air like magic. It moved smoothly and steadily, held perfectly in place by Reyna's telekinetic field. This was another ability that the Dragon Empire considered inferior and useless. But for delicate mechanical work, it was absolutely perfect. Reyna could hold components steady in positions that would be impossible for human hands or any clamp or vise. "Your father is an idiot," Tyler said matter-of-factly. His voice bounced off the metal walls around him. The plasma coupler wobbled in midair as Reyna's concentration broke. "Tyler," she gasped, shocked that he would say something like that out loud. "What?" "It's completely true." Tyler emerged from inside the machine, crawling out backward. He was covered from head to toe in bright blue coolant fluid. It dripped from his clothes and hair. His hair was sticking up in about 15 different directions, making him look like he had been electrocuted. "He sent you here as an insult to humanity?" The man would not recognize genius if it walked up and bit him directly on his tail. Reyna's bronze scales began to shimmer with a pleased golden glow. She could not help it. No one had ever called her a genius before. "I simply applied some basic scientific principles to the problem," she said modestly, trying to downplay her achievement. "Basic? Are you kidding me right now?" Tyler grabbed a rag and wiped coolant out of his eyes. "Reyna, that cascade resonance system you installed in the colony's main power grid last week increased our overall efficiency by 34%. 34. Our mining output jumped up by 42%. We are producing more resources in a single day than we used to produce in 3 days. Director Helms is so happy with the production numbers that she has completely stopped bothering us about protocol and ceremonies and all that diplomatic nonsense. It was simply a matter of recognizing the harmonic patterns in the energy flow and adjusting the... And being absolutely brilliant," Tyler interrupted. "Say it. Say the words, 'I am brilliant.'" "Tyler, I cannot just. Say it, or I am not going to show you the antimatter containment problem I discovered in Reactor 7 yesterday." Reyna's eyes went wide with alarm. "You found an antimatter leak? Tyler, that is incredibly dangerous. You should have reported it immediately. If the containment field fails completely, it could. I will show you all the details after you say it. Say, 'I am brilliant.'" That is blackmail. Yep, it absolutely is. And you know what? It is working. Now say it. Reyna lowered her head, but there was something different about the gesture now. It was playful, almost teasing. So completely different from the way she used to cower in shame when she first arrived at the colony. "I am moderately competent at certain specific types of..." No. The word is brilliant. Not competent. Not adequate. Brilliant. Their eyes met across the workshop. Human blue stared into dragon gold. Something passed between them in that moment. Something that had nothing to do with marriage contracts or diplomatic arrangements or political alliances. Something completely real and genuine. "I am brilliant?" Reyna said it like a question, like she was testing out the words to see how they felt in her mouth. "You are absolutely right about that." Tyler smiled at her, that crooked grin that always made both of her hearts skip a beat. "Now come on, we have work to do. I have got a containment field that keeps fluctuating in ways it should not. And I think your crystalline matrix theory is exactly what we need to fix it. They worked straight through the night like they often did these days. The New Horizon colony ran on a 26-hour cycle instead of Earth's 24 hours, but neither Tyler nor Raina paid much attention to time anymore. There was always another problem that needed solving. Always another system that could be optimized and improved. Always another impossible challenge to tackle together. Sleep could wait. The work was too exciting. When Raina finally solved the antimatter containment problem at 3 in the morning, Tyler let out a loud whoop of pure triumph. Without even thinking about it, he threw his arms around her front leg. It was the only part of her body he could actually reach to hug. Raina went completely still. She froze in place like someone had turned her into a statue. In her entire life, spanning decades, no one had ever spontaneously hugged her. Not once. Physical affection in the Dragon Empire was reserved exclusively for the favorites. For the beautiful princesses with perfect scales. For the powerful warriors who won glory in battle. Physical affection was not for disappointments and failures. Slowly, very carefully, like she was afraid she might break something, Raina wrapped her wing around Tyler's shoulders. It was awkward because she did not really know how to do this. She had never practiced hugging anyone before. But Tyler did not seem to mind at all. He just leaned into her wing, relaxing against her. She could feel his warmth seeping through her scales, a pleasant sensation she had never experienced before. "We make one hell of a team," Tyler said softly, his voice muffled against her scales. "Yes," Raina whispered back. Her voice was full of wonder and amazement, like she could not quite believe this was real. "We really truly do." Neither of them said anything about the marriage contract after that. Neither of them talked about duty or diplomacy or what they were officially supposed to be to each other according to some treaty document. They did not need to have that conversation. They were already becoming something much better than what any contract could define. They were partners. They were friends. And maybe, just maybe, they were becoming something even more than that. 3 months after Raina first arrived at New Horizon Colony, the Dragon Empire sent an official inspector to check on things. Lord Theron was everything a traditional dragon was supposed to be. He was massive, easily twice the size of Raina. His scarlet-red scales gleamed and sparkled like polished rubies under any light. His wings were perfectly symmetrical and powerful. His voice could shake the walls when he spoke. He represented everything the Dragon Empire valued. Power, beauty, tradition, intimidation. Theron arrived at the colony expecting to find exactly what Emperor Valthor had intended when he sent Raina there. He expected to see a humiliated human colony that had been stuck with an inadequate, disappointing princess. A living, breathing reminder of how little the Dragon Empire thought of humanity. He expected the humans to be angry, embarrassed, and resentful. He expected Raina to be miserable and isolated. The whole situation was supposed to be an insult that kept on insulting. Instead, what Lord Theron found made absolutely no sense to him at all. He stood in Director Patricia Helms's office, reading through production reports on a data pad. His sharp claws kept clicking against the screen as he scrolled through page after page of data. His eyes grew wider with each number he saw. "These numbers cannot possibly be accurate," Theron hissed, his voice full of disbelief and suspicion. Production increased by 600% in just 3 months? Expansion to 4 completely new asteroid mining operations? According to Imperial records, this facility was barely breaking even 3 months ago. It was nearly unprofitable. The office door suddenly opened without anyone knocking first. Tyler Reed walked in like he owned the place. He was covered in grease and oil stains as usual. His work clothes were filthy. He had smudges of dirt across his face. And he did not seem even slightly intimidated by the enormous, powerful dragon looming over the director's desk. Most humans would have been terrified. Tyler just looked annoyed at being interrupted from his work. "It is called the Raina Reed Resonance System," Tyler said casually like he was discussing the weather. "Named after my partner. She is the actual genius behind all of it. I just build and implement whatever she designs. All credit goes to her." "Partner?" Lord Theron's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. His voice dropped to a threatening growl. The marriage arrangement was a diplomatic contract between governments. It was not meant to be a real partnership or... "We got married for real 5 weeks ago," Tyler interrupted, not letting Theron finish his sentence. He held up his left hand so the dragon could see it clearly. A simple copper band gleamed on his ring finger. Nothing fancy or expensive, just a plain metal ring. The colony chaplain performed the ceremony. We wrote our own vows. Invited about 50 people. Had a real celebration afterward. Honestly, it was the best day of my entire life. Lord Theron's gaze shifted away from Tyler to look at the doorway. Reyna had entered the office quietly behind Tyler. For a long moment, the Imperial Inspector could not process what he was seeing. His brain refused to accept it. This was not the same dragon who had left the Dragon Empire 3 months ago. That dragon had been cowering, ashamed, broken. She had walked with her head down and her wings tucked tight against her body, trying to make herself invisible. She had spoken in whispers and apologized for existing. The dragon standing before him now was completely different. Reyna stood tall with her head held high. Her movements were confident and purposeful. Her bronze scales seemed brighter and healthier than Theron remembered, like she had been sick before and was now recovered. Even her bent wing, which Imperial records had listed as a deformity and a sign of her inferiority, just seemed like a normal part of her now. Not a flaw. Just a feature that made her unique. But the most striking change was in her eyes. They were clear and focused, burning with intelligence and determination and purpose. These were not the eyes of a failure. These were the eyes of someone who had finally found where they belonged. "I have a message I want you to deliver to my father," Reyna said. Her voice was steady and strong in a way it had never been in the Imperial Palace. Every word was clear and firm. "Tell him thank you." "Thank you?" Lord Theron sputtered, completely caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" "Thank you for sending me away from the Empire," Reyna continued, taking a step forward. Lord Theron actually took a step backward, surprised to find himself retreating from this dragon he had been told was weak. "Thank you for introducing me to someone who values innovation and creativity over blind tradition. Thank you for accidentally giving me exactly what I needed to become who I was always meant to be. You can tell my father that his insult was the greatest gift anyone ever gave me." Reyna took another step forward, and her voice grew even stronger. "I am done being ashamed of who I am, Lord Theron. I am done pretending to be less intelligent than I am just to make other dragons comfortable. I am done hiding my abilities and interests because they do not fit Imperial standards. This is who I am. And I am proud of it. The Emperor will not tolerate this kind of insolence and disrespect." Theron snapped, his voice rising with anger. "You are still a subject of the Dragon Empire. You will be ordered to return immediately and—" "The Emperor," Tyler cut in with an almost cheerful tone, "can file whatever formal complaint he wants. But we are protected by the marriage treaty that he insisted on creating. The treaty that he personally signed and sealed. Reyna is not going anywhere. And neither am I. That treaty is legally binding under both human and dragon law. This colony still falls under Imperial jurisdiction according to—" "This colony," Director Patricia Helms interrupted, speaking up for the first time since Theron had arrived, "has become absolutely essential to the Dragon Empire's economy. Whether you want to admit it or not." She pulled up files on her own data pad and turned the screen toward Theron. "The technologies developed right here have already been adopted by 17 other facilities across the Empire. The productivity increases are currently being studied by your own Imperial engineers. They are trying to figure out how we did it so they can copy it." Director Helms leaned forward, her voice turning cold and hard. "So if you threaten our autonomy or try to take Reyna away, I will personally ensure that every single innovation we have created gets restricted to human colonies only. Your empire will lose access to all of it. And your economy will suffer badly. Is that really what you want to report back to Emperor Valthor?" It was partially a bluff. They probably could not actually enforce that kind of restriction. But Lord Theron did not know that for certain. He looked back and forth between the defiant human mechanic, the completely transformed princess, and the data pad full of results that he could not deny or argue with. The numbers did not lie. "I will report all of this to the Emperor," Theron finally said, his voice tight with frustration. "You do that," Reyna replied calmly. "And while you are at it, tell my sisters something for me. Tell them that their ugly little sister has accomplished more in 3 months than they have in their entire lives. Tell them that being different is not the same thing as being wrong. Tell them that maybe they should try thinking for themselves instead of just following tradition blindly." Lord Theron turned and left the office without saying another word. His tail knocked over a chair on his way out, but he did not stop or look back. That night, after Theron's ship had left the colony, Tyler found Reyna in their private quarters attached to the workshop. She was staring at her own reflection in a polished metal panel on the wall. Her expression was thoughtful and a little sad. "Do you really think I am beautiful?" Reyna asked quietly, not taking her eyes off her reflection. Tyler walked over and stood next to her. He really looked at her. Not just a quick glance but a real, genuine look. He saw the bronze scales that reminded him of sunsets back on Earth. He saw the bent wing that had taught her resilience and creative problem-solving when others would have given up. He saw the brilliant mind that found solutions to problems other people did not even know existed. He saw the gentle, kind soul that had been beaten down and criticized for years but had somehow kept its goodness and compassion. "Raina," Tyler said softly, reaching up to take her large foreclaw in both of his small human hands. "You are the most beautiful person I have ever known in my entire life. Inside and out. Your heart, your mind, your spirit. Everything about you is beautiful. And anyone who cannot see that is completely blind." Raina began to purr. The sound was so deep and powerful that it made tools rattle on the workbenches across the room. She lowered her head down to nuzzle against Tyler, and he wrapped both arms around her snout, holding on tight. They had been sent together as a joke. As an insult meant to humiliate both of them. But they had become each other's everything. And they were just getting started. The news started spreading through the Dragon Empire faster than anyone expected. Stories traveled from planet to planet, from space station to space station. People whispered about the failure princess who everyone had written off. They talked about the insulting marriage arrangement that was supposed to humiliate the humans. And most importantly, they shared stories about the impossible success that no one saw coming. And then something unexpected began to happen. Slowly at first, like a trickle of water that would eventually become a flood, they started coming to New Horizon. Dragons who did not fit the Imperial mold arrived on transport ships. Dragons who were too small by traditional standards. Dragons whose scales were the wrong colors according to ancient customs. Dragons who were interested in subjects that the Empire considered inappropriate or beneath them. Art and poetry. Science and mathematics. Philosophy and history. These were dragons who cared more about creating and learning than about combat and conquest. They had all heard the stories about the place where a so-called defective princess had become a living legend. And they came seeking the same chance she had been given. The chance to finally be themselves. "We are going to need significantly more space," Tyler said, standing at the workshop window and watching the 5th transport ship land in just as many days. More dragons kept arriving and the colony was running out of room. Raina's golden eyes gleamed with excitement and possibility. Her mind was already working through the logistics. "I have designs completely ready to go. Expansion modules that can attach to our current structures. Dedicated research laboratories with specialized equipment. Training facilities specifically designed for hybrid human-dragon engineering teams." She paused for a moment, and uncertainty crept into her voice. "That is, if you think it is a good idea. I do not want to presume." "A good idea?" Tyler turned to look at her with genuine enthusiasm. "Raina, it is absolutely perfect. Better than perfect." He pulled up holographic architectural projections that Raina had been working on in secret. The plans were incredibly detailed and well thought out. "We are going to build something truly amazing here. A place where everyone can contribute whatever makes them unique and special instead of having to hide it or be ashamed of it." Back in the Dragon Empire's capital, Emperor Valthor was absolutely furious when he learned what was happening. His rage shook the walls of the Imperial Palace. He immediately sent an official envoy with written demands. The envoy carried orders demanding Raina's immediate return to the Empire. The Emperor also demanded the instant dissolution of what he called this illegal settlement of defectives and primitives who are embarrassing the Empire. But by the time that envoy arrived at New Horizon, it was already too late for the Emperor's threats to mean anything. The colony had become absolutely essential to the Dragon Empire's economy, whether Valthor wanted to admit it or not. The Rainery technologies were now being used throughout the entire Empire. Every major facility had adopted at least some of their innovations. The hybrid engineering techniques that combined human creativity with dragon abilities had completely revolutionized mining operations, manufacturing processes, and energy production across dozens of different worlds. The innovations coming out of one small colony had fundamentally transformed entire sectors of the Imperial economy. Shutting down New Horizon would cause economic chaos across half the Empire. The Emperor's favorite daughters, those perfect paragons of traditional dragon beauty and power, had produced nothing even remotely comparable. Yes, they led military fleets with distinction. Yes, they commanded respect and fear wherever they went. But they had not changed anything fundamental. They had not created anything new or innovative. They had simply maintained the status quo, doing things the way they had always been done. Deep in Emperor Valthor's ancient heart, pride wrestled with pragmatism. His ego wanted to punish this rebellion and put Raina back in her place. But his practical side understood the economic reality. Pragmatism won the battle, as it eventually always did with successful rulers. The emperor had absolutely no choice but to officially recognize New Horizons' status as an autonomous research colony under joint human-dragon governance. It was the closest thing to an apology that Emperor Valthor was psychologically capable of giving. 5 years passed. Time that was filled with growth, innovation, and transformation. Reyna stood on a wide observation platform, looking out over what had once been nothing more than a simple, struggling mining colony. The view took her breath away every single time she saw it. The Reynareed Institute for Applied Sciences now sprawled across 3 different asteroids and 2 massive orbital platforms. The complex was enormous, a small city floating in space. 300 dragons and over 700 humans worked side by side every single day, building things that had been considered impossible just a few years earlier. Tyler came up behind her and their daughter rode on his shoulders. Little Katie was 4 years old now, and she was the absolute first human-dragon hybrid to ever exist. She had her mother's beautiful bronze scales covering her arms and back. She had her father's dark hair that fell in messy curls. And she had inherited both parents' insatiable curiosity about how everything worked. In one small hand she clutched a toy spacecraft that Tyler had built for her. In her other hand she held a calculus workbook that she was already starting to understand despite being only 4 years old. "Your father sent another message today," Tyler said casually, though his tone suggested it was anything but casual. "He says he wants to visit New Horizon. In person this time." He used very formal language about discussing the future of Imperial human cooperation, and examining opportunities for expanded collaboration. "Does he now?" Reyna said. Her tone was perfectly neutral, giving away nothing about what she felt. "I sent back a polite message saying we are extremely busy with critical projects. Told him maybe we could arrange something next year. Or maybe the year after that. Possibly the year after that." Tyler grinned with satisfaction. He did not sound very happy in his response. "Good." Katie piped up immediately, her young voice full of certainty. "Mommy told me we do not have to talk to mean people, even if they are super important emperors." "That is exactly right, my little spark," Reyna said warmly, lowering her head to nuzzle her daughter with gentle affection. "We only talk to people who treat us with respect. Life is too short to waste time on people who are cruel." Tyler looked out over the sprawling campus below them. He watched dragons and humans working together on collaborative projects that would have been completely impossible just 10 years ago. Projects that would have seemed like pure fantasy. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your father had sent one of your supposedly perfect sisters here instead of you?" he asked thoughtfully. Reyna pretended to consider the question with exaggerated seriousness. "Well, let me think about that. We would have had many awkward diplomatic dinners where no one knew what to say. You would still be working completely alone in that cramped tiny workshop you started in. The Dragon Empire would be missing out on the greatest technological revolution in its entire history. And I would still be back in the Imperial Palace, pretending to be smaller and less capable than I actually am, hiding everything that made me who I really am. So no regrets at all? Not even a single one." Reyna lowered her massive head to gently touch Tyler's forehead with her snout. It was their usual gesture of affection that they had developed over the years. "My father sent me here as an insult meant to hurt and humiliate. Instead, he accidentally gave me absolutely everything I ever wanted." Katie giggled happily and reached out with both arms, trying to hug both her parents at the same time. Down below them in the research laboratories, impossible things were becoming routine everyday occurrences. Dragons with abilities that the Empire had labeled as useless were revolutionizing scientific fields that had been stagnant and unchanged for centuries. Humans with strange ideas that others had mocked were finally finding collaborators who understood and appreciated them. Misfits and dreamers and outcasts from both species were working together to build the future. The Emperor's cruel joke had transformed into humanity and Dragonkind's greatest alliance. And Reyna, the ugly daughter who was supposed to be a punishment and an embarrassment, had proven something vitally important. She had proven that true value is not measured by physical appearance or blind adherence to tradition. Real value is measured in innovation and new ideas, in compassion and kindness, in courage and determination, in having the strength to be exactly who you were always meant to be, regardless of what others think. She had been sent away as a failure. She had become an inspiration to thousands. And in a human mechanic who saw her brilliance before he ever noticed her scales, who valued her incredible mind far more than her royal lineage, who loved her for exactly who she was without wanting to change a single thing, she had found everything she had never even dared to dream about wanting. Tyler squeezed her massive claw gently in his small human hands. Raina purred with contentment, the deep sound vibrating through the observation platform. Katie suddenly demanded loudly that they all go look at the new reactor design that had just been completed. And together, all three of them headed back toward the workshop, ready and excited to build something new. The end.